there. Wasn't quite as seamless as I wanted, but almost seamless. Hey people, how are we doing tonight? Hope you're well, wherever you are. I've got a little bit of concrud. But what's concrud between me and 50,000 people? It's all good. Hope you're well. Hope you're good. Hope you're thriving. Hope you're doing great. Because we all know it takes collaboration, community, friendship even. It takes a village. Yes! Yeah! We made it! We made it! I just got back from Atlanta yesterday. And I'm here. We're all good. Ah, rock and roll. Rock and roll and this thing called Tylenol. It's amazing. Yeah. Kind of violin. We've got a special guest today. Very special guest. We have our first composer on It Takes a Village. Yeah. Sorry, just some of these names coming up on my screen right now. Okay, so let's take you down a little bit. Sorry, Pandescent. Yeah, great tune. All right, so hello. If you're joining for the first time, welcome to It Takes a Village. My name is Samantha Bayot. I'm an actor. You probably know me best as Carlac from Baldur's Gate 3. I've done lots of other stuff. We're not going to go into that because it's not about me tonight. It's about our guest. So if you're coming along, there is no need to subscribe. Jeff Bezos gets half of your money. And I'm not on very much. So you don't get very much for your money. You get some emojis. Here's me trying to talk you out of it. Trust me. You get some emojis and stuff, and obviously no adverts, but no one gets adverts here on any of my streams as much as we can remember to look at the timer. I say me, remember to look at the timer. So don't feel obliged in any way. If you're feeling generous, there are many ways to throw some money in my general direction. But most importantly, this way, charity this month is World Central Kitchen. They go out to conflicts and disasters all around the world and cook, locally sourced meals for people affected by that. You might have heard of them recently because they were in the news. Their convoy was blown up going into Gaza, and they're going back in, and they're a bunch of volunteers, and they're incredible. They're not security folk. They're not military. They're not mercenaries. They're just normal people, and they want to help. And I think the work they do is incredible. And last time I looked at the total, we were at $1,500. So that's pretty good. Thank you, everybody that's donated to that and continues to. The charity have been in touch and are really grateful, as am I. It's very, very cool. And if you can't do that, that's also okay. Please spread the word or just chill, relax, enjoy yourself. It's just lols. We're here for the lols. If you want to get in on some of the village action, seamless. We have merch. There's even thirst traps if you choose to have a look. So do check that out. I'm just going to trigger that, I think, if no one else does. Oh, you beat me to it, Nightbot. Yeah, we got there. There we go. Flawless transition. Thank you. And then we've also got, if you want an autograph, Streamily. It's pretty cool. You can get a signed thing there if you can't come out to one of the many cons that apparently I'm doing this summer. We also have a new piece. If you're into the Dark Lac run and you're with Minthara, there she is. After Gentileschi, Holfornes. That's it. Judith chopping off Holfornes' head. Look how happy they are together. Yeah, so I think that's it. We'll move on from me. We're going to move on to our guest, who is, I hope you're there, Mark. Wonderful. Mark Choi, I hope you're there. At the moment, you appear to be offline. So we can maybe do a bit of introduction. Oh, dear. Oh, yeah, I can see you on Discord, but you're not. Oh, there you are. Can you just... We've got you. No, we're good. It got tense for a bit, but that's live theatre, isn't it? So everyone, this is Mark, who I've known for some time. I'm trying to think when we first met, but I guess some sort of a games meetup. A lot of people screaming Mark in chat, which is very exciting. So Mark's intro biography that he gave me was so modest that I'm now digging around on his website to read you a bit, but I'll keep it short if that's all right. So Mark Choi He's a freelance composer focused primarily on video games, and he has a background as a classically trained pianist from the Royal Academy of Music. I'm reading off the screen. I'm ill. I'm sorry. Um, he holds an MA in orchestration for film, games, and TV from Think Space Education. That's the University of Chichester, and a BSc in computer science from Clare College, University of Cambridge. He's also a BAFTA Games Connect member, as I am, or have been at least, and was also a 2003 BAFTA Games Awards juror for audio achievement. His credits include Tailwind Studios' Breezy Bay, Capitolite Studios' Path of Kami Journey Begins, Flying Carpet Games' Hiboka, Teasel Cats Games' as yet unannounced debut title, and a few other to be announced titles, with some very established indie game studios across Europe. He's also, since 2015, been a resident composer at Whole Hog Theatre, which is a company that exclusively supports and creates Anglo-Japanese and animated stage collaborative works. And it goes both ways, not just stuff in the UK. So they've started with the world's first theatrical adaptation of Princess Mononoke, based on the film of the same name by Studio Ghibli. They've also adapted works such as Romeo and Juliet into Japanese, taking place in Japan. And the last show was Garden of Words, which was on at Park Theatre, I think, in London. Is that right? I do remember. Okay. And that got an Offie nomination. If you're a Londoner, you'll know what that is, or maybe from the UK, you'll know what that is. But that's pretty darn cool. And as an arranger and orchestrator, he's been nominated twice for a Game Music Remix Award in 21 and 23. Firstly, for a track from his Ni no Kuni tribute album. And that was so cool when I read that, as I didn't have a clue. And secondly, for an arrangement from Divinity Original Sin 2 collection. We'll get back to the association with Larian a little bit later, if that's all right. There's so much going on. You've won awards for Alone We Have No Future from Death Stranding, and you're also, this is my favourite fact about you, a resident arranger for the London Video Games Orchestra since inception. He regularly produces arrangements for them to perform at their concerts, which take place 3 times a year, and I will be going to the next one. You've also performed, you're also a live performer as a soloist or session pianist as well. But I'm just going to end it there. You're very, very well accomplished, is what I'm trying to get across. Sing for me!
La, I'm back.
Phantom of the Opera. Sorry, I just watched someone do that the other day acoustically. It was terrifying. Always audio issues for audio people. Yeah, thank you, Loud and Kerry. That's very kind. We just moved the other screen out of the way, and now we've got 2 Discord windows. That's right. One day I'll work this out. Right.
I was so much help there, wasn't I? Yeah, it's really good. Just
As
sat there.
everyone was, they just enjoyed the carnage, the D12 emotional damage that I've now suffered. Thank you for your patience, Mark. Everyone watching tonight, how are you, my love? How are you tonight?
I'm very good, thanks. Yeah. It's been a busy month, but it's been good, really good.
Awesome.
And as I was saying to you, actually, it's half term right now, so there's added complications of little people not getting in the way.
People you're related to.
Basically,
you're not just picking on small children in the street.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's been lovely. It's been really good.
That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. So we start at the beginning, because you've got a degree in computer science and a degree in music. Which way round did you do them in?
Computer science first. I mean, there's a long history there of, I guess when I was young, I started off as a classically trained pianist. And it's funny because, I'm Asian parents, so people seem all right. They obviously made me play the piano, made me do a lot of different things. But actually, with piano in particular, for me, very, very natural sort of affinity for it. I just went straight to it. Actually, the reason I started was my older sister was learning, and I think she was probably more on the camp of, being encouraged to play. And I just kept interfering with her practice whenever she was playing. And so my parents thought, oh, maybe he wants to have a go.
You want to play, you're going to play.
Yeah, either I was really annoying her, which could have been the case as well, or I just really love playing. And so, yeah, I just kind of started and then, progressed very, very quickly. Just loved it. And so,
amazing.
Yeah.
So then
and
you
it's
must
really
have
funny
had a
because
love
when
for
you're
the computers as well. Like, you must have had time to tinker with all that to the point where you did a degree in that.
Yeah, I think with the computer side, I started playing games quite young, and I was never allowed consoles or anything like that. But we had really, really, and I grew up in the 80s, so we're talking about like really old blocky PCs and laptops that were the size of tables and stuff like that. But yeah, my dad I think was secretly a gamer, but he just wouldn't really. We wouldn't talk about it ever. But I
The
remember very
shame.
clearly, yeah, like the sort of the mornings before school, and I wake up, and if I got up in particularly early, I'd be like, what's that light across the hall? I don't
Oh
understand why no one should be awake
wow.
at this time of day. And so I kind of creep over and look. My dad is playing Base Quest or something like that, or I don't know what it was, Quest for Glory. It's definitely one of those Sierra games. And so I've just been watching him, and then
Mhm.
I mess around with him, and a couple of minutes later, he'd be like, "That looks really cool," and you would just turn around and go, "No, no, no, oh, no, I'm not,
Oh
yeah,
Dad, did
no,
this
I'm not,
thing
no, no,
get
no, go to
turned
bed,
on?
why are you awake?" All this kind of stuff. So yeah, I definitely got it
Oh.
from him, secret gamer. But yeah, I started playing things like I've always been a role-playing game fan, so any RPG I would just play. So I started off with like the Might and Magic series, and not even Heroes of Might and Magic, but like Might and Magic original role-playing games, and talking about monochrome, going forwards and turning right and left, and battles, and yeah, it's yeah, really incredible. But I was really young at the time, and that was the only thing that I wanted to play, and then yeah, got into that.
I inherited a CPC 464 by Amstrad. It was green, just
Oh
to
no!
spite me, rather than grey, and it played off tapes.
Oh
And
wow!
my friend's older brother was getting a Mega Drive, so I got that
Oh,
piece of misery, and I started to
Jesus.
code in BASIC as well because I'm a masochist clearly. That's how I
Yeah,
got into it, and a little bit of programming on my side. But then,
yeah,
so when you
nice.
were doing the degree, was it with the intention of going into programming, or did you know that you always wanted to train as a musician?
Yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. So with the degree, it was more a case of I had got to the point where I was quite serious about the piano, but serious in that I knew I was good, but I was really lazy. So I would do things like play football every day instead, or go out with my mates and stuff. And then my peers, and I was, doing competitions nationally, internationally as well, and somehow scraping by, maybe occasionally getting the prize here and there, and be like, oh yeah, yeah, I can do this. And then my peers were just, doing 4 hours a day on top of school. And we're
But
talking about people who are really like doing it professionally now at the top level, and these are people that I grew up with. So yeah, it's
what I'm getting is the word genius, Mark. That's what I'm
no,
getting.
no,
It's
not at all,
smug
not at all.
genius,
No,
smug genius,
not.
just like
I
living
wish.
living
Yeah.
his life out there, playing jock sports and also being a nerd at the same time, like living the best of both worlds. I see you.
Um, I wish it were that like that, but no, no, I was the guy who was going to band camp, and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, my piano teacher was the head of keyboard at the academy, which is why he just basically expected I would follow him, and so I would go to the Royal Academy to do my undergraduate. So I had to basically talk to him and say, I don't think I can do this, and the reason was, you know at that time, this is like 20 years ago, so being a piano player meant you could only just be a concert pianist. This is like before even things
Hmm.
like MySpace were a thing. So
Of course.
you're
Yeah.
literally, okay,
Social
I'm going to
media.
be a solo lifestyle. Am I practicing enough? Am I going to reach that, 0.1% of people? Am I putting in the effort for it? And all these,
Mm.
questions, the answers were very obviously no. So I said to him, okay, I should probably just try and get a degree, like a proper degree, and go for it, and just do it that way. So actually, I loved computer science, but it wasn't, I guess, my first love. It
Hmm.
was almost like I don't think I'm going to pursue music, so I should probably do the next most sensible
Mm,
thing.
mm.
Um, yeah, and so that's kind of what happened, and it was a tough conversation because he just assumed that it would happen, and then we didn't really talk too much after that, which is quite sad.
Yeah,
But
I mean, the sort of the natural trajectory I saw when I was at Guildhall. So like 9 out of 10 students were music students, and they were
mm,
funneling in from children. They were going to the weekend classes and all the extracurricular stuff, as well as
mm,
rehearsing after school and everything, and then going straight into a music degree, either in classical or jazz or composition. I think were the main three degrees.
mm,
But then you did go
mhm.
back into music academically, um, and you went into composition right after.
Yeah,
Yeah. How was that?
Yeah, so I was in sort of tech startup land for like 2 decades, and then maybe
Hmm.
about 10 years ago, I decided
Oh,
I really wanted to get back to. I was playing a lot more, and then I was actually composing. Actually, I've been composing on and off for like 2 decades, but I mean, at the beginning, it was more just messing around at home or messing around with some friends, and then like jamming. And then I started a band with a friend of mine, and we were like writing songs together, and then we were gigging around actually quite a bit in
yeah.
London, and so that was another. That was, I guess, the second phase of did I want to become, a performer, like an actual gigging musician, and that was obviously no as well. But the point is that kind of kick-started that love of music
Hmm.
again, and just taking it a lot more seriously. And I've always played games, as you know, and RPGs,
So this whole
JRPGs, and
time
Harry
that's
Potter,
been
and
going on, yeah, underneath,
yes,
yeah.
I've just been playing tons of games. We're talking about all of them, all of the big role-playing game franchises, all the the Final Fantasies as well, Dragon Quests on the
Mm,
Japanese side. So yeah, all these games I've been playing, and then part of me was like, okay, I actually want to start getting involved in more composition. And a friend of mine was involved in a production music library. In fact, the guy that I started the band with, he then moved into like a day job of working for this production music library. And then he said,
right.
"Oh, what do you want to do a piano album for us?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then that kind of this is a while ago now, and so that kind of
Hmm.
kick-started, "Oh, okay, this is something I can do regularly on the side, and then keep up my musical chops, or at least kickstart it again, and then maybe lead to something else." And so that was like the beginning of a path of,
Mm,
oh, let's take it from here. But the gaming side, then there were a lot of mobile games and things like that around, and a
right.
lot of people starting to code and do little indie projects on the side. And I had a few friends in the tech startup companies that I was working at. They were also obviously keen on doing things um, outside of their day job, and so I fell into maybe one or two small things where it's, oh, I'll do some music for you, and they're like, oh, okay, that's great. And so the game side started from there, really.
Right. So you're sort of saying you were hanging out on the scene, as it were, and then word of mouth, perhaps? Was that how it was? I don't know how a composer
Yeah,
gets a job. I know there are a lot of composers, especially in the UK, vying
yeah,
for what seems like few jobs.
yeah.
Just,
I think we talked about this a little bit. I think with getting any job, it's all about who you know and how you know them, and
mm,
how much you have in common. What's your friendship like? I feel like when I started, I just had the intention of meeting more people in the games industry, because I thought, okay, if I want to get a job here, and I've been in tech startups long enough, and I'm customer facing, I was building teams, I was actually
hmm.
hiring and running teams as well, and I realized how I guess the world works in some ways. If you get comfortable with someone, if you have a lot in common, then people are more likely to work with you. So I just thought, well, I don't really know that many people. I should just
Mm,
start making loads of friends. And then I think, people mostly it started online. So I met actually a few people dotted here and there in the States, and that kind of led to different things. And then
hmm.
here I started turning up to, the WASDs, or actually it was EGX Res at the
Is it
time.
rest? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so
Must
like
be so long
anything,
ago, like
and
3 years ago.
yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
and insomnia, and just started turning up to random meetups and stuff, and finding out where things were happening, and then
Mm.
just, I guess, being brave and being, oh, hi, I don't know any of you, but how's it going? And then just making friends like that. So
That's so cool. I was just wondering if it'd be okay to show some of your show reels, just so people know like the sort of music that you've made. So
yes.
bear with me while I make some more horrible technical errors, and we'll be back shortly.
Start playing.
This is Professor Eve. She takes students to other worlds and often brings them back again. Say hello, Eve. Yes, well, good effort. Would you like to see some art, Inspector? One of our students brought it back from a faraway land. Perfectly safe, as long as you don't touch the waggly bits.
Everyone is very suitably impressed and in love with you right now, Mark, if you're looking at the chat.
Oh, I appreciate it. That's actually quite an old reel. I need to update it. But
Sorry.
yeah.
I did ask permission, chat.
No,
Don't
no,
at
it's
me.
perfect. No, no,
But
it's
very late in
perfect.
the day, I was like, oh, by the way, I think it would help if people heard what you actually did. One thing that sticks out to me in that is the fact that you very nicely explained. I've never seen that on a show reel for a composer before. You very nicely explained what you're doing, what the music is doing in that moment. Do you think it would be good to talk a little bit more about working with different clients and experiences and expectations and that sort of? I mean, basically, you're saying, what's it like being a composer in the games industry? I think's the question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So the first thing about the show reel is, I'm sure a lot of composers out there feel the same way, but you probably have 5 or 6 different versions of it. So this one was okay, I wanted to have here's a video game composition reel, but then I didn't really want to have Fmod or Wise, which is basically the middleware software which you can use to implement dynamic or interactive music. And then if you just see that, it gets kind of cluttered and it doesn't really explain too much. So you can actually show it, it's fine, but then that's probably more of I guess, a technical role. If I wanted to be like a technical music designer or anything like that, then I would probably do something like that. But if I'm just being a composer, I think it's enough to say, this is what's happening to the music and this is why it's happening. But yeah, I think with all the different jobs that I've had, it's all really, really different, right? You've got some really small studios. Either they might be just working on the side or they just running their own kind of independent thing. And there's different ways of doing it. So some people will be like, hey, okay, that's fine. You do everything. It's fine. You choose how you want to play the music. And I just will make one distinction as well. I have consciously marketed myself more as a composer and not a composer and sound designer. And I feel like because I could if I wanted to, but I know that I'm not really a sound designer and I have done sound design before and I appreciate how complex and and difficult and if you want the best experience, I think you need someone who's got the real chops to do it. And so I just focus on saying, what, if people want composition and sound design, I will usually say, what, I'm probably not the right person. But if you want music for a particular style, particular genre, I can definitely do that. So in that lens, it's like, okay, if you want to implement it, go ahead and do it. And so I've been lucky enough that I've had the chance to use both Wise and Fmod, but a lot of those learning things were literally doing it on the fly. So part of Kami was Wise, and it was something that me and the sound designer suggested, but we both were just basically learning as we went along, which is really great fun because yeah, I think that's just the best way to do it in an environment where the team was really lovely and everyone is really trying to build something beautiful together, but there's no pressure of, we have to do it like this or like this. There was no stress around it. It was like everyone was doing it actually as a side project at the time. So it was kind of like, let's do the best that we can. And
I
then,
imagine that background in computer science really helps with learning new technologies, that I guess you would embrace it rather than really hate the experience. Because in my experience,
yeah,
I love learning new technologies and implementing them in different ways. I was
Yeah,
just wondering if you
exactly.
had any advice to composers, because it sort of reminds me. It just sort of made me think of my own experiences of working with, people who aren't directors, right, who are directing their game because they're indie and
Mm,
that's what they're doing. Two people who've come from theatre, right, and I've worked with both. And I
mm.
imagine it's the same for you in terms of musical directors or whoever is making those calls. And I just wonder if you had any advice. And it's a software engineering thing again, though, isn't it? It's sometimes you have to you do a lot of translation, don't you? You have to change your language so that the different stakeholders can understand what you're saying. And I was just wondering if you had advice on how to do that when you're maybe working with someone who's not used to working with composers.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is in the kind of the language that you use, but then also what you can demonstrate. So I think a really powerful way of doing it is just try and explain without having to talk about musical terms, sort of what the effect is
Mm.
you're trying to achieve. But I think it also does help to then have an example live, like I guess like my show reel, for instance. If that part in Path of Common when you kind of walk through to the shrine area and then it just changes to a slightly different type of music to say, oh look, we're in a slightly different phase of the game and there's a different new place to explore. And then if you can just show it, demonstrate it, then that's a really powerful way of doing it
Mm.
as well. So I would say, and I guess to your point about learning technology, if you've already know how to use like Wise or Fmod like that, then it's quite easy for you to just quickly put something together just to say, oh, look, this is the kind of thing I was thinking of. I mean, if you don't, we can always do it in any number of different ways. But if you like this, we can, explore using it this manner. Um, so yeah, I think to your point, learning, not being afraid of the technology is helpful. And I think if you're lucky, um, just having the exposure to it is really great. But some people have just careers where they just never have to touch it. And actually, in the game that I'm doing right now, so Empire of the Ants, we are not using middleware, and
Mm.
also there's an in-house sound team, so they're basically taking my music and then implementing. Obviously, we talk about
Mm.
it and we kind of explore different ways of doing it, but I don't have to do that. And I think I'm sure there are a lot of composers out there who just literally are in that bracket where they don't have to touch it. So the advice is it really depends on what environment you thrive in or what kind of team you want to work
Mm.
for, and what I guess your expectations are, what your goals are. Like for
Mm.
me, I think working in AAA would be really cool, but at the same time, I feel like my actual goal is to work with really established indie studios of a size where I get to know everyone, and then
Mm.
telling kind of really impactful stories, or yeah, whether they're like narrative adventures or role playing games. But I say that now. I'm not saying I would never want to explore the different areas, but I
Shots
just feel
higher,
like
Mark. He's very good. You've just seen his reel. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Have you got a
knowing
preferred way of working, a preferred team or setup that you? I'm just being nosy.
um, no, I mean, if I
Is
had
it more about the
the budget,
projects itself?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of advice about really being good in a bunch of different genres, which I
Yeah,
think is good advice. I
yeah.
think for me personally, I prefer to be really good at a narrower set of genres, really. I think that's kind of worked for me.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it depends. I love the kind of games that I love to play are just usually for orchestral or, very ambient instrumental music, sometimes piano led. And obviously, I have my own piano, I can record my own piano, so that obviously gives me a slightly different
Mm.
edge to what I can offer as well. So I kind of lean into that, and I think that's sort of my choice to do that. But I think everyone has to figure out their own way of
Yeah.
where they want to go. But if I had budget, for instance, I mean, I would love to work on more projects where. So I'm actually lucky enough that we do have budget to record live instruments for Empire of the Ants, and so that's where I think yeah, I want to stay in this kind of
Mm.
area for as long as I can. And then, we're talking about it takes a village, right? I really, really wanted more budget to invite, you know, orchestrator friends as well, and then have a
Mm.
proper team around me to then help organize the session,
Mm.
and then so people can get credits as well. I really, really want to do more of that.
Yeah.
I am getting remote musicians to record, so hopefully we'll get a couple more people. But yeah, that kind of thing is yeah. So I kind of contradicted myself a little bit by saying, I don't want to be that person building a massive team, and yet I do kind of want to have enough of a team that the people that I work with and say, oh,
Yeah.
right, I've got a credit for this, or I'm now music designing this, and that would be really great. And I think that goes back to just, we haven't talked about it yet, but like, who makes your village, right? And I think that's like a really important thing. I find that in games, there's just a brilliant tribe of people, right? Everyone that we've met, or that I've met in general, has been really kind and really inviting and really giving, and so I think, and especially in game audio, I would say, which is a funny thing that some people might not expect, that if you're competing against other composers technically for jobs, you'd expect it to be a bit more like, oh, you don't really associate with each other. But actually, the game audio, and I mean composers, sound designers, audio designers, performance directors, everyone, voice actors and stuff. It's just, everyone just loves each other and supports each other and promotes each other. And I think that is something I really, really love, and I just want to do more of that whenever I can. And I feel like I'm not quite in that position yet, but at the same time, you're always in a position to be able to promote others. So yeah.
I was I was going to get to that bit of the interview at some point, but
Sorry,
I
I
was going to
kind
no
of
no
jumped
no
over
no
it.
no it's great because I can just sit back and listen to you, Mark. It's great. I don't have to drive at all. But I was going to say, like, the way I've seen you is that any new composer friend, I bring them to you. You're the first person they're going to meet because I'm like, Mark knows everyone. He knows everything. Listen, don't shake your head. It's too late. So like, listen to everything that he has to say. It's all golden, and I've brought you a couple of different people who might feel that they have limitations. Oh, well, I don't program, I don't whatever, and you've just gently slapped them down with knowledge of, you don't, well, you work to how you work. You'll have another, if you want support, you get the support, and that's just been so nice. It's interesting to hear you talking about part of the community, because for me, I see you as actually quite near the top of it in a way. Without even, really knowing, before I knew your body of work, it was quite clear you knew what the heck you were talking about. And then I sort of wanted to get onto like London Video Game Orchestra, because that seems very grassroots. I don't know if you play it or not, because I'm about to see you for the next gig. I haven't seen you yet, but I'm not quite sure your personal involvement in the live side, but I know you do orchestration for it. And I just wanted you to talk a bit about, well, I guess you were there near the beginning, if not the beginning, and how and why it sprung up.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. I did consider playing, I auditioning for the piano, but I just realized I wouldn't be able to have the time to do it. Like, it would be like weekly rehearsals and then like gigs 3 times a year, then with family and then
Yeah.
work, and then at the time it was day job, and then at the time it was like 2 kids under 2 or 3 actually at the time. Yeah, under 3.
At
So
the
it was
time, how
just
many have you got, Mark?
no, then it was just that at the time they were under
They were so
3, so
small.
yeah,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
2.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just that part in my life where you kind of just look at, and actually still now, you kind of look at life one day at a time, maybe a week at a time now.
No, it's very
So I just didn't
sensible,
really think
because I
about it too
imagine something
much.
you can overcommit in these things.
Exactly.
I say that from experience. So yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
the
how was
conversation
it
was like,
started? Was it started by I guess audio games people, right? It wouldn't just be
it was
composers and musicians, like
it
full-time
was started
musicians.
by Galen and James. So Galen was, he basically did VGM covers, but he was someone who's really passionate about games. Met James. James is a professional musician. He's a conductor. He's no longer the conductor actually now. He's just moved to
Right.
Spain for a year. But yeah, so they kind of started it off, and I just came across it online. It was like, oh, we're starting a video game orchestra, a community one. We just love to, to hear from everyone. Please audition here and blah, blah blah. So I just messaged them and said, you know what, I really really wish I could play. I can't. But is there anything else I can do? I mean, I mean, where are you sourcing your arrangements? So I just asked them the question.
Yeah.
It's like 5 years ago. And then at the time they were like, oh, we haven't decided yet, but let's talk about that. And I had done a couple already in the past for shows, so I just sent them and said, "Oh, that's great." And so they played actually both of them for the very first concert that they put on, and then ever since then it's been a case of and the orchestra is just full of the best people, like really, really lovely, lovely gang. And it's a mix of people who just love video games and
Yeah.
people who are actually, pursuing music professionally. And so there's like this really wonderful mix of people who just love video game music. And so yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. And there are other people now within the orchestra who have orchestrated for the orchestra as well. And I think that's brilliant. So it's not just a case of, oh, let's just get these arrangements in. It was actually James Galen fostered a culture of let's help each other arrange stuff. Like, and then there's this on the Discord, there are people just offering to say, oh, hey, percussionists, does this make sense? What do you think? And then everyone just comes in and be like, oh, I think you should. And so it's just a proper community of
Yeah.
musicians.
Sounds like a
So I love
village
it.
to me, Mark.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I
I don't
think
know.
I should
It's great. Have you got
should
like
have.
rotate? Do members rotate, or are they committed to it? It's like
Yeah,
a pool of
I think
people.
there's a core. I mean, I think there is turnover as I mean, I
Yeah.
think there always is with these things, but it's not like a huge amount. I think I've noticed maybe a few members drop off and then a few
Yeah.
more come in.
Yeah.
And auditions don't really open that often, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
one of
so
those
people
things.
stay.
But they've got a big enough roster, whereas if
Yeah.
some people can't turn up to a concert,
Yeah.
then it still goes ahead. So
Yeah, of
that's
course. Yeah.
yeah.
So let me just get this right. So how long? So they're themed. Each concert is themed, right? I'm just trying to paint a picture for chat here.
Yeah, that's
And the new one's an anniversary one, so I'm excited about it because I saw the word Final Fantasy in there, and I saw
oh
that in
yeah.
Albert Hall. So very excited. I'm expecting the full choir for the Sephiroth theme, obviously.
So they picked the kind of the most popular, all the orchestra basically voted for it. And actually they are playing a Dragon Age arrangement that I did. So
Ah,
yeah,
so that
that's
was going
going
to
to
be
be
next
there.
question. What arrangements have you done, or if you've done loads, what are favourites?
So yeah, the Dragon Age one is a popular one. I think
And what's that? Is
my
that the
my
main
favorite.
tune, or what's the deal?
Yeah,
What is
so
it?
it's the main theme. I actually
Yeah.
added a little bit of an intro that wasn't really there, but it's just kind of like a way to let the rest of the orchestra kind of have their
Yeah.
moments. But yeah, I think my favorites to work on were probably the Street Fighter 2 medley, which I don't know what sort of mindset I was in at the time, but I went insane with that one. I basically put at least a reference to every single theme from Street Fighter 2 into that thing. And it's really, really hard to play, and I had to apologize many times, but they loved it. It's just
The
pretty
chaos
nasty.
of it.
Um, I would love to tidy it up a little bit and maybe see if anyone wants to get a recording of it, because I think there's some fun bits to it, and I do some very silly things in it. So yeah, but I also did a Genshin Impact medley for the Mondstadt region. So I don't know if you know the
Oh.
game, but there's lots of different regions, and I just focused on the
Ah.
first region you started. And actually, the virtual video game orchestra is recording that right now. So
The virtual video game orchestra. This is
so
amazing.
there's a virtual video game
I didn't
orchestra as
know
well,
that.
which I can also talk about. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's
Do
lots.
because we're all virtual now,
Yeah, so the
and most of the
VVGA.
viewers aren't in the UK, so they can't come to the concert.
Oh, okay. Well, VVGO, everyone can participate in, which is great. Oh, they're gonna love me for talking about them. Yes, they're also a lovely, lovely crew. And again, I just submitted my arrangement, and they were like, "Yeah, let's do this." So they basically have like a submission procedure, and then they choose what they want to do, and then essentially what happens is they make all the parts available once they've tidied up and they've done a lot of. There's like a whole team there.
Oh,
There's like music prep, there's like additional ranges, there's like people giving advice on I guess more ethnic kind of instruments and stuff like that. And then so they all go through this whole process, and then when it's all done, all the parts get uploaded, and then you can just turn up and be like, oh, I'm going to record this, and then they'll ask for a video as well if you're comfortable with that. And so you've seen their previous work. It's just literally 200 people playing like bombing mission from FF7 or something like that, and it's just so cool. It's so cool.
you're gonna have to
It's
drop that URL for us. Where
yeah,
can we
yeah.
find this?
It's so cool, and then basically you can be anywhere and then just submit a
No,
recording,
no,
and you
Mark,
can be
how do we watch it? How do we find this?
they're on YouTube. Just Virtual Video Game Orchestra,
Virtual Video Game
VVGO.
Orchestra.
Yeah, that's
VVGO.
it.
I hope you're
Yes.
writing this down because the poor mods are going to get asked this a lot now. How do I see this?
Okay.
Friend Milk says. Yes, we just told you. VVGO. VVGO.
No, okay. I mean, I don't actually know the exact link, so I can.
You're going to have to Google this yourselves, kids. Someone will work it out and they'll put it in chat because chat is very smart. Friend Milk says, I have ADHD, I already forgot. We all have ADHD. You're not helping. Catsalot got it. You win, Catsalot. Yeah, I guess, and while we're on the topic, we did allude to Larian and your involvement with him earlier. We've got some other stuff that you don't lead with, which is I find quite interesting. You're very modest about your achievements and all of that sort of thing. So I'm just gonna, you know what I'm gonna play. So I'm just gonna cut to that, and
Okay.
we will come back shortly, and then think about questions, chat, and we'll have a break as well, and we'll come back and start with all your lovely questions. See you in a sec. Not a dry eye in the house, Mark. It's absolutely wonderful. And if chat's wondering what's going on, that's all very official. And even the score is included in the special edition vinyl, isn't it? Is it on the
Yeah.
vinyl? Is this track
So
on the
the,
vinyl?
the the recording is not, no. So, but it's just the arrangement that I made of that's the arrangement itself. I just thought if
Wonderful.
people wanted to hear what it would sound like,
What it should sound like with you playing it. Yeah. I'll say it, even if you don't want to. Fantastic. They're loving it. They're loving it in chat. I'm sure you can see that. Absolutely stunning work. Talk us through, how did you get involved to the point where you're doing arrangements for Baldur's Gate 3 soundtrack?
Oh, I think it just highlights just how funny life can be in general, but also I think the importance of following what or doing what you love and being like not being kind of shy about what your passions are. So I think I played Divinity 2 and absolutely loved it. It was like one of my favorite games, and so played it 100 hours, the usual kind of RPG thing that I just sink all of it in. And obviously loved the music, and so the first thing I did was, okay, I'm going to do a couple of covers of Divinity music. So I did
Yeah.
Riverlong, and I did the main theme, and then Bobby heard it, and then he basically he was forwarding it, he was tweeting it and stuff like that. And someone had mentioned, oh, by the way, Bobby's like tweeting it. But then we just started messaging on the back of that. So he was saying, he loved it, and then we became friends. And then I just said to him, oh, it'd be really great if we could just grab coffee sometime. Because I'm actually going to be in London, and this is maybe 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. So it's quite a while ago.
Love
But
it.
he was coming to a ludоmusicology conference, like not a big one, but it was somewhere in Surrey. And I thought, oh, that's like a perfect time for us to. And I remember going into the conference, and sort of maybe about 100 people at most, like maybe 50. I think it wasn't even that big. But he was giving one of the keynotes, and I remember I was just a little bit late. I walked into the room, and he was giving the talk, and then we'd never met before, and he was just, and then suddenly looked at me and went, "Oh, hey, it's Mark. It's a friendly face," and so he just called me out from the room. I was just like, "Oh, wow!" And so yeah, and then we just grabbed a coffee after that, and I thought it would just he was being kind, but we just spent like an hour. I mean, it could have gone on for a lot longer, but he was a busy man, and so we just chatted, and it was a really lovely time. And I think we bonded over so many different things. Obviously, our love for role playing games was number one, but then we talked about this as well. Our sort of shared background of we are both in basically in computer science, IT, whatever that area, tech, and then
Yeah.
we both have the same feeling that we just can't ignore our passions. And so it was just a really it's just the right time, right place, I guess. And then after that,
Amazing.
I did a couple of Baldur's Gate arrangements as well, and then we were already friends by then, so he was like, oh, and then at the time, you said, oh, if something happens, if something comes out, I definitely want to, we'll do something together. And I thought that's very kind of him to say, but I wasn't going to hold out too much hope of that. But then, in sort of like earlier this year, he just messaged me. It's like, there's a thing I want you
There's
to
a
do,
thing.
and so kind of how it started.
And then we saw each other at the South Bank Centre for the live
Yeah.
experience. I would have loved to seen you on there. The spotlight come up. There's Mark. Everyone's weeping. I don't quite know where it would have fitted in, but it would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But that's for the future London Video Games Orchestra. Just saying. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you've actually described someone in your village already. That's quite a villagey thing he's gone and done for you there. Is there anyone else? Because I know you support so many people. You can make this different. This can be just like emotional support. It doesn't need to be career support. But like, who are the kind of people that are in your village?
Oh, wow. I mean, I I feel like this is a tough question because like I feel like everyone who's touched you know, and obviously I should go first and foremost to family and
Of
obviously
course.
people who've supported you all your life. That I think that's like absolutely given. But I feel like it's really funny. Like everyone, I think the importance of leaving a positive impression wherever you've been
Mm.
is just so important. I think at this stage of my life, and I'm older now, and this is my second career now, I guess, and I feel like
No
that
one
is
on this
really
this
clear.
show has ever done games as a first career, so you're in very good company.
And I feel like that just the funniest things happen from people that you've met in your past. I think like the villages and literally everyone whose path you've crossed. Like for instance, Empire of the Ants is a great
Mm.
example of someone. The only reason I heard about the pitch process for Empire of the Ants was because I noticed that someone I had worked with 15 years ago, also in tech, had then just become like a producer at a games company. And I was just like,
Yeah.
that's so weird. You're in games, I'm in games. And he was like,
Let's
oh,
do
that's
a
weird.
game.
You can play me. Oh, we're doing a pitch process for Empire. And I was like, do you want to join? I was like, yeah, of course I want to join it. And so,
Love it.
obviously pitching is, you don't expect to win anything. But like, the point is, I would never have heard of it had I had, and if I'd left badly, if we weren't friends. I don't know, it's like every sort of imprint that you have in your life, wherever you go, I feel like you've got to treasure all of the kind of moments that you have. So I mean, yeah, so I mean, that's a bit of a wishy-washy answer.
No, it's
Like,
real life. It's very wise and gracious in a way that I wish I was. So, so I'll take that. I'll absolutely take that. So we're
yeah.
going to have to go to break soon, and it'll be the end of my interrogation. We will hand over to chat, who are, I think, really just blown away by meeting you tonight. I was just wondering if there's anything that you wish that you get asked. Is there anything that you wish you get the only had the opportunity to say, then you would say it? That, and it's a hard question, and I'm aware of that. And if you want to sit on that for later, you could do that too.
Um, not really. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of my background that I guess some people wouldn't really know about. But honestly, it doesn't really matter whether they know it or not. I feel
Yeah.
like it's kind of infused, and when I compose, I feel like I draw from all those things, from my
Yeah.
piano background, from being in a band, and from being, all these things,
I
and
understand. Yeah.
I think that's yeah, it's fine. There's
All
no
right. Well, I guess we could. I mean, we could go into like freelance life quickly a little bit. Do you want to talk about that and how we can better advocate for ourselves, especially as composers? I mean, I know we've already got like we actually do have a kind of natural solidarity between composers, which is great. But I mean, in
yeah.
terms of industry facing, how can people better look after themselves? My partner's a composer and musician. I totally understand how much you guys get ripped off, like any artist out there as well, and how easy it is for your work to be stolen or misused and all the rest. And I'm just wondering if you had any tips for people to better look after themselves.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably a couple aspects. I think one we talked about already, which is finding a community that supports you. Like you advocate for them, they advocate for you. That's really important. I think just having friendships, mentally being able to rely on the support network, because people
Mm.
know when you're at home or within the game sphere. But also, I think for us as musicians, it's very, very important to act true. Well, first of all, have confidence in our ability, but then also behave professionally, to be treated professionally.
Mm.
And I feel like that's a case of, if someone wants to, if someone's offering you a fee that you feel is really not worth your time, you just have to treat it professionally. So if you think, okay,
Mm.
I shouldn't be doing this for that because that's not what I'm worth, you just reject things out of hand. And I know it's difficult because I come from a position from a different role where I kind of had a different life, and then I prepared, at least financially,
Yeah.
for the step that I'm taking right now. So that I guess I'm in a position where I can say, if this is not the right job for me, I'm just not going to do it. But I feel like at some point you have the confidence, and then you also act professionally in that manner, and people will kind of view it differently. And I feel like as a freelancer, I'm very much, I came into it quite naive, thinking, I've never wanted to start my own business, but actually that's exactly what I've done. I've just started my own business.
Yeah.
And so part of it is like brand identity. Like my
Mm.
brand identity has to be, am I going to be someone who's just going to, just take stuff and not negotiate, or not value my own services enough? And people are going to remember that. If I start off and be like, this is what I'm worth, and this is what I'm going to do, then people will treat you in the way that you deserve to be treated. And I feel like that's,
Absolutely.
you just need to have that confidence to say, or if you're working in a big project and the environment is just terrible and you're not enjoying it, or you
Yeah.
feel like could be that. I feel like there's at some point, yes, you will take it. Obviously, we will always take a job like that at some point. But in the other points, you should just feel like if that's not working, just
Mm.
don't do it. And I feel
I
like you
know,
have to
I
be
know you're
brave.
saying is you're coming from an area of privilege, and of course I'm sort of there myself now. I mean, to a degree, there's still people that will just think you're grateful to like the main point of me doing this is to stand up in public and yell or something. It's like no. But even when I was super poor, I just say no to stuff. I just say no because I think the only doing unpaid work leads to more unpaid work. That's all I've
Yes.
seen. There's no
Yeah.
like trajectory. There's no career plan. You just have to, if you have those standards, those boundaries, and you maintain them, you should be all right. And then you're not having those dilemmas of, oh, if I take this, I can't. All of that, you've absolutely. And as an artist, I think you have got your legacy to think of, and you have got all this, what you're putting out in the world and what your name is attached to. And if you care about that, then you do need to think about that too. But all I'd say is
Mm.
like whether working for free or badly paid work or badly contracted work just shows that you're available to be exploited.
Yeah, I
In
think
my in
you're a
my
great
estimation.
example. you're a great example of sticking to principles as well. Like, and that's since I've known you. No, I think it's
It's
brilliant
called
that
cutting
you.
your nose off. That's what.
No, I wouldn't say it.
I like the word no. I like the word no. Okay, that's it. Yeah, I
No,
mean,
it's
hopefully
great.
that inspires other people as well. I mean, we do have
Mhm.
both of us between the Musicians Union and Equity in the UK. We do have some sort of residual hangover in other areas of pay and working conditions that we can try and bring into games, which is largely unregulated. But we do have to
Yeah.
stick by it, otherwise, people with the money will just walk all over us.
Mm.
Yeah.
I will shout out like friends like Gina, a friend of mine. She's also a composer and also has put together that kind of UK freelance. And just a way to introduce transparency so that people
Yeah.
aren't just kind of, and that's also helps us, but also helps developers to say, oh right, okay, this is, you know,
Yeah.
where can we kind of
Just
draw the
somewhere
line
to
or
start, because
bring
people
out the
are
average? Yeah,
coming in from all walks of life. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it really is that people just don't know how much to budget for us and
exactly.
all the other things, because they don't know what we do. Like,
Yeah,
they'll expect
there
you
is
to dial
no
it in with virtual
regulation.
instruments, and they go, but why doesn't it sound like the AAA blockbuster game? What's going on? You see,
Yeah,
I know composers.
exactly.
All good, we're
Oh,
laughing. So we're going to go for a little break, if that's all right, Mark. We're going to take at
cool.
least 5 minutes. We'll talk and come back when you're ready, and then we'll be into, like, the questions are coming in now. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'll see you all shortly. Hello, we're back. And again, the interstitial doesn't work. So I just want to say a very quick thank you to the lovely donations that have been coming in through today's chat. We have Systinator. Music is life, isn't it just? An anonymous donation, and Ves Hylia. Thank you, Ves Hylia. I always think of Zelda when I see that. Thank you very much. I think that's it for tonight. We've got 1,600 in donations. Not too shabby. So we're now going to switch over to our lovely questions. The first one, or first two even, three. Why not? Friend Milk says, what are some of your musical inspirations from games or otherwise?
Wow, it's a big question. I think I guess from my classical days, I was very much a big Chopin Liszt Rachmaninoff, very sweeping romantic ballads. I
There
think
we
that was one of
go.
my favorite to play. So I think that's kind of filtered through a lot. I'm a massive Studio Ghibli fan, so I've grown up with the music of Joe Hisaishi, and obviously his work on Kuni as well. So he's crossed over to games. And then I think Final Fantasy is probably it's one of my most played franchises,
Mm.
possibly. It's hard to say, but yeah. So I obviously Uematsu's fan and Hamauzu's fan. Yeah, all the great composers there, and Sakamoto. Yeah, they're the ones that I kind of listen to a lot. But I also grew up with an older sister who was a massive Disney fan. So people like Alan Menken, and then more recently, I guess Michael Giacchino, John Powell, big kind of and yeah, I think there's kind of big theme there. Very thematic, very
Mm.
great melodic writers, and so yeah. And then obviously
Mm.
John Williams has been a massive influence for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of everyone's, I suppose. But I guess outside of some more unusual ones would maybe things that I've really, really enjoyed recently, I guess, like Disco Elysium's soundtrack by Sea Power. I just,
Yeah.
yeah, fell in love with that so
I
much.
now can't listen to those tracks without thinking of Disco Elysium. So, yeah.
It's
Thanks,
so
Sea
incredible.
Power. Thanks
Yeah.
for reminding me of the misery of Revachol.
Yeah, it's just, I think I love music that makes me sad. I mean, it just has to weigh me down heavy, and I just
Yeah.
love getting it. Obviously, not Joe Hisaishi so much, but like just that, that's
Yeah.
really kind of remember. And so things like Death Stranding as well, I really love that soundtrack. Not just Vicky Purcell's work, but all the kind of the
Mm.
licensed music that kind of just fades in and out, just that kind of
Mm.
bleakness. And I think because it came out, I actually played it in the pandemic, so it just felt like
Right.
a really kind of weird experience for me, but pretty amazing. Yeah, yes.
We've got
Sorry, it was
another.
very long
No. We've got
answers.
another question. I'll have a long answer. Oh no, it might have a very short answer. It would do if it was me. Do you think it's possible for composers and musicians with no formal or classical training to find work in games asking for a friend? The friend is them. That's the joke.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot of examples of people who have not had formal
Yeah.
training who do it. I think if you're passionate about something enough, you will find your own way of learning it. I think that's really, really important. And yeah, you should definitely do it. I mean, in fact, when the Game Music Festival, both composers, like Gustavo Santaolalla and then Bobby themselves, both mentioned they didn't have any formal training either. And, they can do it.
I'm hearing
They
genius
had,
again.
yeah, exactly. So there is that element to the genius as well. But, if you feel it, and you just got to find a way to express it in that way that suits you,
Of
and I'm
course.
sure it's doable. Yes.
Absolutely. I'm imagining the answer to this is it depends, but I'll ask anyway. Can you talk a bit about your process for composing for games? What are you asked to provide first, and where do you go from there?
So if I'm lucky enough to start very early on in the process, then what will usually happen is there will be concept art, there will maybe like a video of the gameplay. Sometimes there'll be like a narrative or document to say this is kind of the overarching plot of the game. Sometimes you don't get any of that, so it just really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, it's really good. And in the best cases, well, I think for some games you might have access to a build, so you might either be part of the repo and you can then download, or if you have Unity or Unreal, you can actually get the build and then you can play the game as it is, which is really cool as well. But I think that's really mostly indie games. I think for you know, the kind of bigger teams where they're very worried about leaks and stuff like that, then you don't get that luxury. So yeah,
Cool.
depends.
Our very own Loud and Kerry says, in the scope of how you work narratively with your music composition, how much of the narrative design are you aware of when you join a project, or are you given a general musical style, inspiration playlist, and the mood they're looking to invoke? If that makes sense. I think that leads straight on from your last answer quite nicely.
Yeah, actually, the one bit I did mention is, yeah, sometimes they just have a mood board, so they will give you like a playlist. Or if you're pitching for a project, part of the brief will include, or they usually will include, these are the kind of tracks that we're looking for. And so they will actually have references, and then you listen to it and be like, okay, right, I know that's the kind of thing you want.
Is that
And
quite
so,
hard though? Because I can't imagine like them playing some Austin Wintory and go, can you make it sound like Austin Wintory but not like Austin Wintory? Because I know
yeah,
commercials do that sort of thing, and it's a bit
yeah,
naughty.
I think what they, so the good briefs will generally pick like very different. I mean, different examples of it. So it's not like, oh, it's so obviously one person. They would actually pick, and maybe they would pick from outside games as well. So it might be like a film,
Right. Yeah,
Hobbit or something
that
like
makes
that. And
sense.
so
Yeah.
that gives you a sense of, okay, they're thinking more of a an ambience or an emotion or a feel, and that helps. Yeah, but you're right. If they be too specific, then you're like, oh, great, I don't really know.
Yeah, you just get then. Oh, they're too expensive. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been in adverts too long. Sister Nata asks, what music genres do you personally like to listen to? I've got a feeling
I
your
do
taste is
listen.
quite broad, isn't it?
Yeah, I listen to everything. I will say I probably don't listen to music as much because when you're writing music, you just don't listen to it. But at the same time, outside of that, I guess, and outside of the things that the kids want to listen to, yeah, lots of different things. I think what a good example would be recently the One Day playlist has just brought me back to my youth. I was like, oh my god, these bangers, I'm just not listening to that. And it's so different to what I normally listen to. I mean, on a
Right.
regular basis, like to game soundtrack and stuff like that. And then also recently, um, my wife and I went to see Operation Mincemeat, and we didn't know anything about it before we watched it. But also, what happened was we managed to pick the final performance of the original cast because we got there and it was like, why is it so rowdy? And then people were like cheering and crying, and it was just so like melodramatic. I was like, what is going on? This is great, but is this a bit too much? And then we realised actually at the end of the show, because there was like some funny bits that happened actually. Yeah, it was their last performance, but it was, yeah. And that is pure genius. If you haven't seen it, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. All right. Admo PK says, I know movie music composers get to watch the movie or parts of it while making the music. Do video game composers get to do the same?
I think that goes back to the first question. Yeah, I think it depends.
No.
But if you're lucky enough to get mood
Yeah.
board, concept art, maybe a bit of video gameplay,
Yeah.
and documents and stuff like that.
Okay, and what kind of space do you like to create in? That's a good
I'm
one. I like that.
That's great. I'm actually sitting in the space that I do all my work at the moment. So this is my little cabin in the garden that came about during the pandemic when I thought I had to get out of the house and did. But also the other place that I do it is at the piano that you saw in the video, and that's in the house. Yeah, I do a lot of fiddling around there. I do actually have the recording computer out there as well, so if I want to do stuff, I can just kind of noodle around. And sometimes it's really good to just sit there and just blast some stuff out without even thinking about like almost what is it like subconscious kind of composition or subconscious playing.
Yeah.
Thinking about things. And
Bit
then
of
you just don't
diffuse
know.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's a great answer. Thank you. Monster Monster Zero says, when you play a game that you didn't work on, do you think about how you would have scored it differently?
Such a good question. Because the funny thing is, I don't actually. I really don't. And I think part of it is I just when I play a new game, I get so immersed in it that I just kind of want to imagine it, like experience it like it was intended to be experienced.
Yeah.
I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about how we do things differently. And I think the one thing I would do is occasionally be like, oh, that's really interesting what they did here, like sonically. That will pick
So
up
get
on
more
things that
inspiration from it. Yeah.
yeah. So I would
Yeah.
learn from it rather than be like, oh, actually no, I wouldn't. Because
I think that's where I know directors have said it. I certainly say it. Like we understand this is all blood, sweat, and tears, and we're certainly not going to drag someone else down. Like and be very kind to someone else's composition or piece of work. So yeah, I find I'm very empathetic to that.
For
And
sure.
I personally don't think this is how I would have done it differently.
Yeah.
Okay, Jolene Core Music. Sorry if I've got that wrong. Hey Mark, I love your piano arrangement from BG3. What would be your advice for arranging a huge orchestral score to piano? As there are a lot of melodic and harmonic lines in the music, which sometimes is a bit tricky to incorporate into a solo piano piece.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you have to sit there and distill the elements of what makes the track or the piece. And so I tend to write down those things. So even if it's too much, just kind of start off with like a score and just put down whatever it is. And then if it makes sense to be able to squeeze it in, then squeeze it in. If it doesn't, if it's just like adding, decoration stuff, you think, can I do it a slightly different way? Or, is it absolutely necessary for the overall feel? And then sometimes it becomes, is it who's your audience as well? I mean, for me, obviously, the funny thing about the Down by the River arrangement was originally Bobby was like, okay, let's do an arrangement that people can play, and then so I did like try a bit more stripped down version, and he was like, I want more of you in it, and so as it developed, it got to the point where we finished it, and he was like, okay, so I don't think people would necessarily play it now, but it's what it's ended up as beautiful, and that's kind of where we want to leave it. So I think that's the audience is important too. But yeah, I think also if you there's a Purple Charlotte is an amazing pianist, and she does a lot of covers as well. And right now, she is going through a process. I think there's a Yakuza song that she's literally breaking down week by week. Oh, not even week. I mean, like she's just like, here's the interlude. This is what I'm doing, and you should watch it. It's like on her YouTube Shorts. But she's a brilliant pianist as well, so definitely check her out.
I'm really chuffed at how many musicians and composers we've got in chat tonight. I just pick like whoever's around, try and mix up the disciplines and that, and I'm never not surprised by just like the depth of the questions when we actually get into it. So good on you, chat. You're doing great. Okay, so Sistinator says, are you interested in composing for medium beyond games, cinema, TV, or even musical symphonies, operas? Well, Sistinator Mark has composed for live theatre, and I imagine some other bits and bobs, but you can tell us more about that, I suppose, yourself.
Yeah, so I think theatre is, and I guess that's the one passion part of my. I mean, so being friends with Alex Rutter, the theatre director, we were friends for like a decade now. And we became friends because I asked her about Mononoke, and then that kind of happened. But we didn't actually work together for a while. But I think that's the thing, like theatre and what we were building over the last sort of 10 years is now kind of really bearing fruit. I think it's brilliant because theatre is so different. It's you have this kind of intensity where you kind of get together. There's rehearsals in 4 to 6 weeks, depending, and then you get a tech week. But during that time, that's
That's
all
when
the
you
time
find
you have
out.
for everything
Yeah.
to come to life. And so it's almost like working like an intense schedule, and then the cast and the crew become so tight, and it's a wonderful experience. And yeah, I wouldn't want to do it full time, but because I love animated stage, I love the team, I love the kind of projects we're doing. It's worth it for those kind of intense moments to say, oh yeah, we've been through the trenches again and done this, and it's been amazing. But I'm also doing a bit of animation as well, so I'm doing a couple of things. Um, yeah, doing a couple of
Okay, things you're not allowed
yeah.
to talk about right now.
Well, I mean, it's not that I'm not allowed to talk about. It's just a couple of teaser trailers. It might lead to other bigger things. So yeah,
Right,
we'll
everyone
see how.
follow Mark on his socials, and I'm sure he'll let us know when he can post something. Is what I'm
Yeah.
getting from that.
But actually, going on that point, I think for things like TV and film, it's not like I would say no, but it's a completely different, start from
course.
scratch and network and there's a whole. I just, I love games. I love what I'm doing right now, and I think there's enough to keep busy. But I love the musical symphonies, operas. That's a really interesting question. I've had conversations with friends where we've applied actually just on whim for like different things. But it hasn't hasn't come to fruition yet. But
In
if
time.
something happened, maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up seeing you helming a symphony. So I'm gonna say I wouldn't be. And the way that you're going with the London Video Game Orchestra, and obviously like the stuff the attention that BG3 arrangement would have got as well. I'm just putting it out there in the universe. Lovely villager Josephine Baird asks, not sure this question works, but something like, how is it to compose interactive moments that might go multiple ways, narratively / emotionally, depending on player choice and timing?
Yeah, great question. So I think a lot of this comes down to having the information beforehand for your planning it. Because a lot of it is, just knowing sort of the direction of travel of the narration. And I think with something like BG3, obviously it's a lot harder because your story kept evolving and changing a lot. But so I guess that kind of answers the question as well. So the music has to be pretty flexible in that respect, and you always write it in a flexible way. So it would be okay. You would have things that are able to loop in a certain way, and then you will also have then the kind of the music that is able to transition, as you say, either emotionally into different areas, and that's facilitated by writing actual transitions and then moving into a different segment of the music or whatever that looks like. So I think that's just it's just basically planning and knowing the direction of travel, and then being able to make sure that those things are cohesive when that happens. So that's a design question, basically.
Yeah, great one. Levator says, usually how complete is the game when you start work?
I've been lucky in that most of the games that I've worked on are quite near the beginning of the cycle. And I think part of that is actually the difficulty that we have as composers as well. Like if something is kind of beyond a particular phase of development, you can be guaranteed they've already got a composer on board. So I think that's kind of a self-fulfilling thing. Like if you don't get in early, you don't get the job. But yeah, I think that all comes from, again, just who you're friends with and who's heard your work. Or some people might be like, oh, I like what you did here, and and then you have that conversation, and that's always really nice too. So yeah, I think the answer is generally quite early on, just by the nature of the way that
That's so great, though. It makes it so symbiotic then, because the developers get to hear it and they'll inspire where they go next with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Nomelette Fromage says, how closely do you work with the narrative team to set the atmosphere of scenes?
Yeah, that again depends on how the team is set up. And I think there are projects where it's properly kind of two-way. So, you might write something and go, oh, actually, that's made me think of something else. And I think there are a couple of occasions where, that's been a really powerful combination. But then there are times where they're kind of busy fleshing out the narrative, and so you're basically made aware of it. But I guess it's not really so much my role to. I mean, it's kind of enhance that narrative rather than to take out. But I mean, yeah, it depends. As I say, once you have something to show, once something's been implemented, everyone being creative has different ideas that come from that. And it's like, oh, actually, we should try this or we can try that. So I guess in that way, it's quite organic.
Danny Leanne says, do you have any suggestions on getting out of a repetitive pattern while composing? I think that's a great question.
That is such a good question because, yeah, I definitely find I do that as well. I mean, I think I think we're really lucky as composers. I would say I'm a musician. Right? So I'm a composer. I'm also a pianist. I arrange, I orchestrate. But I record piano for other people's music. And then, I kind of then do an arrangement for the London Video Game Orchestra. So I'm always exposed to other people's music. I think one way to do it is to listen to more. And one way to do that is not just by, okay, I'm going to put on, Spotify and iTunes. It's literally like I'm going to take someone else's music and then orchestrate it and then figure out the best way to disentangle that. That gives me a different way of, oh, right, actually, they were doing this. That's really interesting. I wouldn't have done that. Actually, one thing I really want to do, and I think there may be a chance for me to do that in the next few months or so, is to work with another composer, and specifically, hopefully, like more experienced composer that I can learn a ton of. But anyway, yeah, I think that's also a brilliant way. Is actually any collaboration with someone else. I really, really would love to try that because I feel like hopefully both parties would learn a ton from each other. Yeah.
But this leads on very nicely to what I think.
Sorry, but also take breaks and walks and things like that, and do
It's true,
exercise.
isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
get that diffuse bit of your brain working, because it's like studying, isn't it? Like that information goes into your head, or at least it interacts with other bits of your brain that do all the genius bits in the background, if that makes sense. It's called diffuse thinking. And so that's why the
Yes.
idea comes to you in the shower or on public transport or when you're out walking, because there's something going on in the connections in the neurons. This is true. I'm not making this up, by the way. Between concentrating when you're focusing on a task and when you're not. And the creative process is really fed by both of those processes. So yeah, it's always good to stop banging your head against a brick wall sometimes and just go out and walk and do something else, or just do something mundane, some tidying up, washing up, cooking, whatever. Sometimes the best ideas come then, and you've got to race to find something to write it down on, haven't you? Voice notes, what my partner uses. He's got loads of voice notes.
Oh my
He
gosh.
gets caught out. Yeah. Yeah, so I'd highly recommend that for anyone in any creative field, generally. But I think what you were just saying there leads us on quite nicely to this last question from friend Milk again. Hello. What are some projects you're excited about working on right now that you are allowed to talk about, Mark?
Yes. So literally, why I've been so busy this month is I finished composing, and there's me actually and another composer. So it's interesting. I am actually working with another composer, but we're not working together, which is really sad because he's amazing. But we are scoring different areas of the game called Empire of the Ants, and I finished that. I've been spending the last few weeks orchestrating it, which, to our earlier point, it would have been lovely if I had a budget to get someone else to orchestrate just to sort of spread the love. Not that I don't mind, I love orchestrating, but and I think also doing your own music is you know what you want. So I guess there's that as well. But yes, that's going to be in live recording next month, which is why it's all a bit frantic. But yeah, so that's Empire of the Ants. It will be coming out later this year. and it's really fun. It's a real-time strategy, photorealistic game. You're basically playing an ant general, and you command sort of these ant colonies, and you're protecting the queen, and there's a whole narrative around, your enemies and all different types of bugs. So if you don't like bugs, yeah, just stay away from the game. It's not. It won't be good for you.
Not for you. I remember someone
Yeah.
asking me about a particular Zelda. I must have been Ocarina or something, talking about spiders, and it's like there's a whole damn level as well. Can I avoid it? No, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, there are spiders in it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, don't play if you're not into spiders. But but no, that sounds great. And what platforms is that out on?
Everything. It'll be
Everything.
on Xbox, PS5, Steam, Switch. Should be
Awesome.
on everything. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Watch this space chat. All right. Well, I think that's it. I think we did it. How are you feeling, Mark?
Great. You can go on forever.
I know,
I
right?
didn't really
It's
think that I
different.
talk very much, but actually, I
So,
can
yeah.
talk forever. It's
So
terrible.
now you get to start your own podcast, because I think you've got an audience who are ready to hear. You've got a really rapt audience tonight, as you should. So I'm really excited that thank you for your time for coming on and sharing some of this with us all tonight. Yeah,
Thank you
so
for
I'm going to
having
wrap
me.
that up.
Really.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And I'll see. I guess I'll see you at BAFTA Social next week. I managed to get tickets.
Yeah. Got my ticket. Yes, I'll be there.
Yes. All right, lovely. I'm going to say goodbye to you, and then I'm going to chat to this lot, and then adios. So,
Thanks for having me. Lovely to meet everyone. Thank you for your questions, and hope to see you again soon.
see you again soon. All right. Well, that's about it for tonight. I've just got to think about who to raid. Just got to think who to raid tonight. I don't know if Intelligame is still on. It's been a while since we popped our heads in there. What are we thinking? What are we thinking? They're doing something cute, apparently. Yes, they are. We can do them. Let's do some end credits.